In the Śrīmad Bhagavatam 2:2-35, Shukadeva Goswami says, the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is in every living being along with the individual soul. And this is a fact, and this fact is perceived and hypothesized in our acts of seeing and taking help from the intelligence. And throughout the purport, Prabhupada gives an introspective process through which one can observe one's own body and mind and come to objectify it and notice that I'm not my body or mind, I'm the one looking at it. Then he says one may take guidance from the Supersoul, taking up at the second paragraph. The first paragraph is quite long. He says, thereafter, we can say that our material senses of perception and action are moving because we are identifying the self with the material body, and that the superior principle of super-self is guiding and supplying us according to our desire. By taking advantage of the guidance of super-self in the form of intelligence, we can either continue to study and to put into practice our conclusion that I am not this body, or we can choose to remain in the false material identification, fancying ourselves to be the possessors and doers. Our freedom consists of orienting our desire either toward the ignorant material conception or the true spiritual conception. We can easily attain to the true spiritual conception by recognizing the super-self, Paramatma, to be our friend and guide, and by dovetailing our intelligence with the superior intelligence of Paramatma. The super-self and the individual self are both spirit, and therefore, the super-self and the individual self are both qualitatively one and distinct from matter. But the super-self and the individual self cannot be on an equal level because the super-self gives direction or supplies intelligence, and the individual self follows the direction. And thus actions are performed properly. The individual is completely dependent on the direction of the super-self because in every step the individual self follows the direction of the super-self in the matter of seeing, hearing, thinking, feeling, willing, etc. So far as common sense is concerned, we come to the conclusion that there are three identities, namely matter, spirit, and superspirit. Now, if we go to the Bhagavad Gita or the Vedic intelligence, we can further understand that all three identities, namely matter, individual spirit, and the superspirit, are all dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The superself is a partial representation or plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Bhagavad Gita affirms that the Supreme Personality of Godhead dominates all over the material world by his partial representation only. God is great, and he cannot be simply an order supplier of the individual selves. Therefore, the super-self cannot be a full representation of the Supreme Self, Purushottam, the absolute personality of Godhead. Realization of the super-self by the individual self is the beginning of self-realization. And by the progress of such self-realization, one is able to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead by intelligence, by the help of authorized scriptures, and principally by the grace of the Lord. The Bhagavad Gita is the preliminary conception of the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, and Śrīmad Bhagavatam is the further explanation of the science of Godhead. So if we stick to our determination and pray for the mercy of the director of intelligence sitting within the same bodily tree, like a bird sitting with another bird, as explained in the Upanishads, certainly the purport of the revealed information in the Vedas becomes clear to our vision, and there is no difficulty in realizing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. The intelligent man, therefore, after many births of such use of intelligence, surrenders himself at the lotus feet of Vasudeva, as confirmed by the Bhagavad Gita 7:19, Bahunam Janmanamante, Gyadavam Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. So here, in a very progressive way, Shukadeva Goswami gives us a means to separate ourselves from the bodily conception of life, which is the way I identify with a particular body. There's no end to it. You might say that, okay, I'm a human being. And so what kind of human being are you? I'm from South India. Okay, South India, of which state? In South India. That makes a big difference, right? And then you say, oh yes, I'm from Andhra. And they say, which village? And then from the village, it's like, whose side are you on? And on, the designations become unlimited in the material world. Bahu shaka hyanantascha bahuda vyavasayinam. When one lacks self-realization or an understanding of what the purpose of life is and who I am, then one becomes more and more absorbed in the layers of designation that cover us. And then we forget the super soul, the super spirit. But we're being revived here. We're being walked just by the hand, step by step, anumapakai. By taking help from the Shastra, we're able to, through this purport, walk backwards and say, okay, I'm not my body, nor am I my mind, my intelligence, and I'll notice that I'm dependent on super spirit, who's sustaining me at every minute. If we take a very objective look, we'll notice that we're helpless. Then, through the Vedic intelligence, as Prabhupada mentions here, the Bhagavad Gita, we come to understand that what's maintaining me here, or Krishna, who's maintaining me here, is a representation, or not a representation, but an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Paramatma is an angsha, a part of Krishna who expands in the material world. And he said, oh, this is just a simple thing that's going on here in the material world. All the opulences, all the ways that I maintain everybody, this is just a spark of my splendor, he says. So by that logic, and that's what this verse is advocating, anumapakai, use this logic and intelligence to come to this idea that there's a Supreme Personality of Godhead who has a separate existence. So we know from the Sri Brahma Samhita, Goloka Namni Nija Namni Chaleta Tasya Devi Mahesha Haridama Suteshu Teshu Te Te Prabhava Nichaya Vihitaschayena Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Besides the lowest of realms, Devidam, which is really for losers, then above Devidam there's Maheshdam, which is for those who are trying to achieve liberation. And beyond Maheshdam is Haridam, the abode of Hari, where Krishna is worshipped in a majestic form. And then above that, there's the Nijadam. Nija, we hear also Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis. This idea of Nija is heartwarming because there's something personal going on here in this world that I've forgotten about. I forget that there's a person behind everything. And if I trace back, I'll find that that person has a life of his own. He has a Nijadam, he has a personal realm where he lives, besides just staying here to oversee the wanderings of the living entities. Ishvara Sarvabhutan Hridaya Sharajanatishti Brahmayan Sarvabhutani Yantra Rudrani Maya. That's not his only business. He has his own Dham. He has his own business. He has his own family. He has everything his own. And he has his own names. And in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, we find that after the Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken, then Uttara, the mother of Parikshit, wants to know, there must be a special place. She didn't hear the entire talk because they didn't have Ramananda Saka Prabhu present there, and it was hard for everyone to hear. So she asked her son, so give me the essence, tell me what happened. So she surmises, using this idea of anumapakai. There's something beyond just this material world and our relationship with God as an order supplier. And she surmises it based on the fact that she's been there and amongst this assembly of sages. And so there's some very deep, pure devotees there. So she said, these people have a different mood. They're not simply jnanis or yogis or karmis trying to extricate themselves from the material, but they actually have this bhava, or this feeling for nija, the person. So therefore, she says to her son, there must be a place where that person lives. That's a unique place. So beyond the Vedic intelligence of the Bhagavad Gita, when one progresses to this yearning to know what is the personality of God, what is his personal abode, then the Srimad Bhagavatam says, okay, you're ready to lean in and listen? Let's go on a journey. We'll take you all the way there to the spiritual world via the Bhoma Vrindavan, which is the gateway to Goloka Vrindavan. As we find out at the end of the Brihat Bhagavatamrita, there's a way in which Gopakumar, after wandering through the various abodes, finds passageway directly to Goloka Vrindavan from Bhoma Vrindavan and through the process of Sankirtan. And we also find at the very beginning of the Brihat Bhagavatamrita that Narada Muni is interested in also discovering where's the most special place. By way of asking, he finds that by way of asking, who's the most special devotee? Who's getting the most mercy? And he starts wherever he is, which is watching a Brahmana perform his puja for Shalagram Shila. And after such a beautiful puja, he offers all the results of that puja back to Shalagram. And he feeds all the people who have come to the festival. And Narada thinks this is the best person ever. And he approaches and says, you're the best devotee. He said, me? No, not even close. If you want to see somebody worship a deity, you go to the Southern King. He worships the deity beautifully. So Narada goes there. Southern King says, nah, me, I'm nothing. He points to Brahma. Brahma points to Shiva. Brahma says, look, I stole Krishna's calves. What kind of devotee am I? Then there's Lord Shiva. He goes, Indra. He goes to Indra. Indra says, I tried to kill everyone in Vrindavan. Who am I? One by one through the Devas and then through Pandavas, the Yadavas, Hanuman. He makes this progression which is headed towards Vrindavan. So we have this way of the hierarchy, of finding out the hierarchy. What are the different moods of the various devotees? And we're looking for that place where people have the mood of unalloyed pure devotion to the Lord, unfettered. And that brings us to the VIHE, which is the Vrindavan Institute of Higher Education. As I heard Amarendra Prabhu once say, refer to Uddhava going to Vrindavan. So what do I have here? So which one am I looking at? Here only? Here itself. Just show me where it's... This is marked? Song of the Bee.
No. It's this one.
So, anyway, I gave a bunch of ideas and I can't remember what they are now, but I'll try to follow the trail. So the Vrindavan Institute of Higher Education. Krishna also wants his devotees to know where is that highest realm. That's why he sent Uddhava to Vrindavan. Ostensibly, he's going there to assuage the gopis' feelings of separation. However, it's actually Krishna instigating that, okay, who's Uddhava? He's trained by Brihaspati. He knows everything. That's why Krishna consults him for everything. Like, what do we do about this? What do we do about that? And Uddhava serves Krishna in that way. And, you can feel content in your service in that way if you know everything, right? You guys can say yeah, because you pretty much know everything. And then Krishna sends him to Vrindavan to bring a message, his message, to the gopis. So here we have at 10:47:61. Yes. After Uddhava goes to Vrindavan, and did we get the Song of the Bee also by any chance? I'll just mention it. He meets with the residents of Vrindavan, and he meets Nanda, Yashoda. First of all, he looks like Krishna, so that's a relief to the residents of Vrindavan. So when he goes there, they're all so happy to see him. What to speak of the fact that he's coming as a messenger from Krishna. And when the gopis see him, they surround him because they're village women. Their sense of etiquette about, like, here's a big personality, it's not so much, because they're thinking he looks like Krishna, he brought a message from Krishna. They sort of surround him and start asking him questions. And in that dialogue, which we find in one of the most important parts of the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam relating to the personality, Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī, who's somewhat hidden throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam due to the fact that Shukadeva Goswami was expediting the talk to Parikshit Maharaj. He had an awareness that going deeply within the topic of Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī, although he summarizes in various places that are obvious and undisputable, there's a way in which he was careful not to fall into a swoon, which he knew he was capable of in talking about the topic, and thus lose time or completely lose consciousness in ecstasy. That happens. It happens in the Bhagavatamrita when the spiritual master of Gopakumar gives him a mantra, and then he faints subsequently after giving him the mantra, and he can't instruct him how to use it. Then he, in a bewildered state, wanders off, and the poor devotee is standing there thinking, did I offend him? Did something go wrong? So devotees are careful. So after he sees the way that the gopis are speaking, and especially Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī, who's noted there as the central figure of all the gopis, the Vrajavadus. And incidentally, it's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's directive given in the Chaitanya Manjusha, where he says, Arajo Bhagavan Vrajesha Tanayasta Dhamma Vrindavana Ramya Kachirupasana Vrajavadu Vargena Valkapita. The highest method of worshiping Krishna, according to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, our Acharya of the Gaudiya Sampradaya, is to follow in the footsteps of the gopis of Vrindavan, their unceremonious, unalloyed love for Krishna. So how does that manifest? We see in the Bhagavatam that there's a description of various levels of devotional service as there are elsewhere, for instance in the Upadeshamrita, right? Levels. And as mentioned by Kapiladev, there's devotional service in the mode of ignorance. There's those who perform devotional service in the mode of passion, those who perform it in the mode of goodness. Ignorance means that one is envious of others. In passion, one has a sectarian feeling and it becomes a separatist. In the mode of goodness, one thinks of offering things to Krishna as a means of tit for tat. And then, as described by Kapiladev, and I'm trying to remember how the verse starts. It's Matguna Shruti Matena Sarvamaya Guhashaye Mano Gato Vanich Mano Gatir Avichina Yata Gangam Batsovan Budao. It's hard to say. Lakshanam Bhakti Yoga Sya Nirgunasya Hudaritam Ahaituki Avyavahita Yabhakti Purushottame. Thank you very much. That's my live teleprompter there. So he describes that the next stage of devotional service, when one rises above the modes of nature, Mamchaya Vyabhicharena Bhakti Yogena Sevate Sagunan Samatitjaitam Brahmabhuya Kalpate, which is inevitable if one continues the process of devotional service. I sent out a quote from Prabhupada the other day. He said, you may chant Hare Krishna offensively or inoffensively, but if you keep chanting, you'll come to the perfection. So, Madguna Shruti Matarena, Mai Sarva Gohashaye, Manogatir Avishina, Yata Gangam Mason Muda. The first symptom that one is performing devotional service that's beyond the modes of material nature, it's not affected by the modes of material nature, is that as soon as one hears about Krishna, the transcendental vibration, there's the transcendental vibration, and then there's YouTube. Of course, on YouTube, you can direct your search function towards I want Hari Katha, or it can go elsewhere. It's just like the material world, unlimited options. And it will conform to your choices too, because it'll say, hey, you know, you like to see cars crashing into trees. Let's show all of them all over the world. So there's a way in which when the mind becomes purified by practicing devotional service, then it becomes attracted to hearing about Krishna. Mano gatir avichnina yata gangam basombuna. How does it act? It acts like the Ganga, which can't be stopped. You try to stop the Ganga, and you can dam it up for a little while, but sometime it'll push through. It'll go around, it'll go under, waters like that. And then he says, Lakshanam Bhakti Yogasya Nirgunasya Hyudharitam, that it has this lakshanam, or this quality, pure devotional service, or devotional service that's no longer tinged by the modes of material nature, which is a haituki. You're not doing it for a reason. Not because you're afraid of material existence, you want liberation, you would like to be recognized, nothing being asked. It's only attraction and wanting to serve Krishna, service for service. I'm your servant, you're my master, that's what I do. And avyavahita means that there's no stoppage. It doesn't stop and start. It's fully on all the time, 24 hours a day, even when sleeping. So, avyavahita ya bhakti purushottame. This is called bhakti proper, the beginning of bhakti. But then, as in the Ramananda Sambad, when this verse comes up as the beginning of unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service, there's more. So where is that more exhibited? In Vrindavan, especially. That's why it's mentioned, what's the verse? Upadeshamrita? The essence of all advice. Tanama rupa charitari sikirtananu smrityo kramena rasanama nasini yoja tishtan vraje tananuragi jananugami kalam nayed akilim ityupadesha saram. One should dedicate one's full attention. Tasmade kina manasa bhagavan satvatam bhati shrotavya kirtitavyasya dhyaya pujam tejastha nityada. Always one pointed attention towards hearing, chanting, remember, adi, all the things related to devotional service. Then that hearing process becomes more and more refined, and one wants to hear specifically about the residents of Vrindavan. Tishtan vraje tananuragi jananugami. One then specializes in a way, because of attraction, to hearing about the unalloyed devotional service of the devotees in Vrindavan. For instance, there's Nanda Maharaj, there's Yashoda, there's the various cowherd boys who have their particular way of serving Krishna. Then there's the devotees who are in Madhurya Rasa, and of all of them, as we hear from Upadeshamrita, the best is Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī. So Krishna sent Uddhava to Vrindavan to realize this. Because there's devotees everywhere. And Uddhava is one of the best devotees. He's one of the Haridasya Varyo. There's Uddhava, there's Yudhishthira. Who's the third? And Govardhan. They're all Haridasya Varyo. So best of best, but then there's super best. There's perfect, more perfect, and most perfect. So we go to Vrindavan with Uddhava in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And when he goes to deliver the message, then he comes to the Vrindavan Institute of Higher Education. And there he meets the gopis, headed by Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī, who then goes into her mad speech. Mad speech means everyone's worshiping Krishna. Sahasrashira Buddha, and many prayers don't say any offense. Be careful how you speak about Krishna. And there's Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī speaking in such ways that are all defined by our acharyas. And now she's speaking like this in madness. Now she's speaking like that in madness. And part of it is criticizing Krishna. We know Krishna. He's gone off to the big city. And he doesn't care for us at all. He's also come in various other incarnations. Look at Vaman. Vaman was a total cheater. He just said, all I want is 3 steps. And Bali said, yeah, 3 steps. And then he took everything. So what kind of person is that? He said in Ram Leela, he stood behind a tree to kill Bali. And he's always there for the action, and then he leaves. So he's gone now. He doesn't care for us. And then she sees a bee come into the assembly, as bees do. And then, you're an unreliable servant of an unreliable master. And she says, I see on your whiskers, you have kumkum. You've been hanging around Krishna, his garland, his kumkum from some other people from the big city. And so she starts to criticize the bee, but then the bee flies off, and then she says, oh no, wait a minute. He's going to tell Krishna what I just said. And no, I didn't mean it. Bee, please come back. So Uddhava's witnessing all these ways in which Śrīmatī Radharāṇī in Vrindavan is absorbed in Krishna 24 hours a day. We see the similar thing in Kurukshetra when Yashoda finally meets Krishna after over 100 years and she takes him on his lap. Vasudeva, Devaki are trying to speak to her, or at least Devaki is, and others who are there. And she's oblivious. She can't even hear him talking because she's so absorbed in Vatsalya Ras. And they finally conclude, don't bother, she can't hear you right now. So this is the mood of the residents of Vrindavan, and the pinnacle of that worship in Vrindavan is Śrīmatī Radharāṇī. So Uddhava then puts this verse, you'll find it at Uddhava Kund, hope it's still there, it's written on the wall. He says, the gopis of Vrindavan have given up the association, this is at 10:47:61. The gopis of Vrindavan have given up the association of their husbands, sons, and other family members who are very difficult to give up, and they have forsaken the path of chastity to take shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, Krishna, which one should search for by Vedic knowledge. Oh, let me be fortunate enough to be one of the bushes, creepers, or herbs in Vrindavan, because the gopis trample them and bless them with the dust of their lotus feet. And the purport. The word meanings and translation for this verse are taken from Srila Prabhupada's English rendering of Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya 7.47. Sri Uddhava here shows the perfect Vaishnava attitude of humility. He does not pray to be equal to the gopis in their exalted stage of love, but rather to take birth as a bush or creeper in Vrindavan, so that when they walk upon him, he will get the dust of their feet and thus be blessed. The shy gopis would never agree to give such blessings to a great personality like Uddhava. Therefore, he cleverly sought to get such mercy by taking birth as a plant in Vrindavan. What do I have here? Can you show me where it is? Forgot what I asked for. I got to look at my notes. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. We should have this problem regularly. So many Shastras Prabhupada gave us. So I want to just swerve a little bit into making this very lofty topic more accessible. Because, as Radhika Raman Prabhu pointed out in one of his talks, you may have the most lofty philosophy, but if you don't have access to it, then what's the use? You may say, oh yes, there are exalted personalities who live in another realm, good for them. What about me? I live in Silicon Valley. I have property tax that's more than most people pay anywhere else for their entire house and car, and plus student loans, everything. So what do? Where do I start from? And that's why we sang the song this morning, Gaurangera Duti Pada. If we can look at the translation, Narottama Dasa Thakura, who's a pure devotee and an acharya, shows the way that we entered Vrindavan. How do we approach keeping above our heads the sanctity of this topic? We don't want to barge in with our shoes on and say, here I am. Garlic from the pores, and hey, who let you in? We don't want to go in to the realm of Vrindavan or even touch it. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was very strict about this, even when he went to Radhakund, and so many Babajis came to hear him speak because everyone knew he was the most erudite scholar what to speak of powerful acharya. And when he sat down, he stayed on the first verse of the Bhagavatam for a month, much to their chagrin, because they thought, let's get to the 10th canto right away. So could I have the Gaurangera Duti Pada, please? For 500. That's a yes, right? Okay, I never know. So here he gives our entryway. So this is helpful to us. Anyone who has accepted the 2 lotus feet of Lord Caitanya as his only asset knows the true essence of devotional service. The heart of anyone who gives submissive oral reception to the pleasing and sweet pastimes of Lord Caitanya immediately becomes cleansed of all material contamination. 2, anyone who simply chants the name of Sri Krishna Chaitanya will immediately develop love of Godhead. I offer him congratulations by saying, see, it's bona fide. If anyone feels ecstasy and cries by simply hearing the transcendental qualities of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he at once understands the eternal loving affairs between Radha and Krishna. 3, anyone who has understood that the associates of Lord Chaitanya are eternally liberated souls immediately becomes eligible to enter into the abode of Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj in Vrindavan, in his next birth. If anyone understands that there is no difference between Gauda Mandala, the place in West Bengal wherein Lord Chaitanya had his pastimes, and the transcendental abode of Sri Vrindavan Dham, then he actually lives in Vrindavan. 4, anyone who takes pleasure in sporting within the waves of the ocean of Lord Chaitanya's distribution of love of God immediately becomes a confidential devotee of Sri Sri Radha Madhava. It doesn't matter whether such a devotee is in the renounced order of life or whether he is a householder. In other words, Grihe Baba Nite Take Ha Gauranga Bole Take. Work with me, people. If he is actually taking part in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan activities and actually understanding what it is, then such a person is always liberated. Narottama Das aspires for his association. Here's an inkling into the way that we enter Vrindavan, the way we could possibly approach this most sacred of all subject matters, which requires the highest of spiritual acumen to understand. And that is, as Narottama Das Thakura is directing us to approach Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and how? To follow in his footsteps in the distribution of the Sankirtan movement. Why is that relevant? Isn't that just a sales technique? Vaiśeṣika, don't you just want us to make our quota, and so you're bringing this up? Not hardly. The mood of the Panchatattva was full of compassion, And that's the mood of Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī. Why was Krishna so compassionate in his appearance as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Because he has the heart and halo of Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī. This is the mood of Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī always, and it's to bring others closer to Krishna. She doesn't covet her intimate relationship with Krishna, but she offers it to everyone else, that they may meet Krishna, they may come closer to Krishna. So there's a few verses that are important. One is mentioning here in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Nimnagana yata Ganga, Devanam achito yata, Vaishnavanam yata Shambhu, Purananam idam tata. Best of all books? Hint, hint, Srimad Bhagavatam. Best of all gods? It's like when I went to see Venkatesh, they told me, you go through fast. All the devotees said, you go through fast, the Pujari will push you out. So I went in, I'm going through fast, and before I could turn the corner, the Pujari grabbed me and held me there and facing the deity. He said, see God. I said, I'm seeing him. And then I tried to move again because I thought that's probably long enough. And I moved and he goes, no, see God. You see God. So, of all the gods, Devananam Achyutoyata, Achyuta, Krishna is the best. And of all the Vaishnavas, Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu. It's Lord Shiva, best of all Vaishnavas. So of course, we have to see this in context, but taking this, Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu, Shiva has the heart of the Vaishnav. Where do we see it? In the 8th canto, when he quaffs the, you can look it up. Hala hala. You don't want that. Hala hala. Is it hala hala? Yeah, that doesn't sound good. The hala hala poison. And he quaffed it. He just, is that the right word? Quaff? We're waiting for our research department. Quaff means? How do you spell it? Sounds like you're getting your hair cut. You think it's wrong? There's a word for drinking something. Quaff. Let's hear it. Try to get your money's worth out of this class.
Quaff is a verb which means to drink something.
How do you spell it?
Quaff.
Quaff, to drink.
Yes.
He quaffed it.
It's something, especially an alcoholic drink.
Yeah, or hala hala. Which is about the same thing. So, he drank the poison. Why did he drink the poison? Everyone came to us, please save all of us. Please save the universe. And so Lord Shiva, the Vaishnavas, of course, let me help. He held it in his throat turned blue. He's known as Nilakanta. So then Shukadeva mentions in this section, Tapyante lokatapena sadhava prayasojana parama aradanam tadi purushasyakilamana. He said, if you want to see real service, it's here with Lord Shiva. It's this mood. It's the mood tapyante. There's some sacrifice that Shiva did. Tapyante lokatapena. What was the sacrifice? It was for all the people of the world. Lokatapena sadhava prayasojana. Here he says, parama aradanam, the highest worship, aradanam, param aradanam, is to take some tapasya for saving others, to do good for others. Tapyante lokatapena sarava prayasojana, parama aradanam tadi purushasyakilamana. So Shukadeva Goswami says, that's the example of the Vaishnav, Vaishnavanam Yatama Shambhu. That's why he's considered the best of Vaishnavas, because he has that mood of compassion. So we have Lord Shiva and his mood, and then we have the mood of, what's all these? This one was about Tapyante Lokatapena. Then, this was probably the B. Okay. So, every one of the Vaishnavacharyas points to Śrīmatī Radharāṇī. It's being the most compassionate. And how can we understand that practically? In the campaign of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Krishna thinks, Anarpita charim chirat karane vitirna kalau samarpayitam unutoj rasam sabhakti shriyam hari purata sundara duti kadamba sandipita sadarade akandare spuratu vasachinanda. For a long time I haven't given access to, or forever, I haven't given access to this Nijadam and to the intimate association of the devotees there in Vrindavan, or an understanding of that. So now let's do it in Kali Yuga, the worst time in the universe. The people are out of it completely in the Kali Yuga. They're bewildered. Manda sumanna matayo. Manda matayo means they have the worst ideas anyone's ever come up with in Kali Yuga. So then he says, okay, let's go now. Let's go now and give the best thing. And everyone's like, what are you doing? This is madness. It's the madness of Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī manifested through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to bring the highest mercy to the lowest people of the world. And so it's come to us. And despite the madness of the world, because of the mercy of Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī and her mood of sharing Krishna consciousness with others, and being fully absorbed and intoxicated by love of God, it comes via Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that's where we have access. Yata yata gora padada vinde ta bhakti ta punya rasi ta tat to sarpata hridya kasmad ardaparam boja sudamburashi. There's a way in which when we worship Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the deity for the Paramahamsas. He's the deity of the Paramahamsas. And if you're not a Paramahamsa, but you worship Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then Karabhajana Muni says, don't worry, you bow down there, you'll become a Paramahamsa. And you'll also attain all the benefits. Sabhajayantyarya gunagya sarabhagina yatra sankirtanenaiva sarvaswarto bilabhite. You'll gain all the highest treasures of the spiritual world by worshiping Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How? Through Sankirtan. So the Sankirtan movement is esoteric. It's taking us to Vrindavan. And Narottam Das, my final statement, says when you dive into that ocean of Sankirtan to worship Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you want to get in that kirtan. You want to distribute the kirtan. You're thinking how to give mercy to others, like the mood of Lord Shiva. Let me sacrifice something in my own life for the benefit of all the people of the world who are suffering immeasurably. Then that you can have access to this realm of Goloka Vrindavan and the pastimes of Radha and Krsna there. It awakens within your heart. Radha Punam Boja Sudormarashi. There's a way, Pudambarashi, the ocean of the love of Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī then floods your heart by worshiping the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now we have -2 minutes for reflections or questions. Yes.
Thank you so much for the wonderful class, as always. I like the point from the purport which said that we need the grace of the Lord to also understand and perceive the supersoul within. So I was thinking, someone might just say that the whole blame of someone not able to understand God goes on God because Lord doesn't give the mercy. So how do we understand that? And I have a second question after that.
Well, we can understand it because all of us may have it to some degree or another. It's a psychological condition that we develop in the material world because we get disoriented and we lose our sense of who we are because of getting lost. We lose our sense of self, we lose our sense of perspective. After all, we don't even know where we came from. And if you start waking up to that fact, it's a little frustrating, isn't it? Like sometimes people are adopted and they don't even know it, and then later on say, hey, guess what? These aren't your parents. And you're like, wait a minute, who am I? we have that psychological condition naturally, Krishna says in the Gita, vitaraga bhaya krodha. Then he says, manmaya mamupashrita, don't worry, bahavo jnana tapasa putamad bhavamag. He said, I understand. The material world is a bewildering place. It's like, you eat a big meal and you fall asleep in a hot car and you wake up and you go, who am I? Where am I? I don't remember how I got here. Has he ever had that happen? Never? Happened to me in Dallas, Texas. I went out to the car to have a little prasadam. I was distributing books in the airport. Kitri, hot car, fall asleep, wake up. Where am I? Who am I? How did I get here? What state am I in? How did I get in this car? Frustration for a few seconds, a little sense of panic, maybe anger, like who did this to me? And we may have that too, because somehow or other, and it doesn't matter how, the only thing that matters is our mood, or the state we're in to address it, is how all of a sudden we're disoriented. We don't know how we got here. So it's natural when you're in that state. Satyadev used to tell me, when you go to patients who would have a diabetic coma, there's no glucose somehow in the brain. The brain's not getting the food it needs. So when he'd go to take care of them, you're trying to save them, and they'll lash out at you like an enemy. So I become like that here in this world. Due to the effect of ignorance, then I think like, God did this to me. And I didn't deserve this. The Krishna says, don't worry, this happens to everybody here. Vitaraga bhaya krodha. Everyone has these psychological, he said, but everyone can overcome it. Putamad bhavamagata. They all get purified by Harinam, by performing the process of devotional service. You just wake up, a little shot of insulin or whatever Satyadev would give them, and all of a sudden they go, oh, hi. Yeah, I'm a doctor from Stanford. Yeah. And for 2 seconds before that, he thought like, oh, why? Why am I here? Who are you? Who are you to tell me take a shot? All these types of things. So we feel like that against God. So, jnanena tatrajnanam yesham nashanam atmana. Krishna says, when the light comes on again, then you'll be okay. Just try to turn the light on and try to get a little purified, and then you'll feel yourself again. Call me in the morning. Okay, a couple more questions. We got to go. I'm getting the sign. Kane's going to come out next. You got to go to work and school. Last two, and I'll make the answers so fast you won't even believe it.
Yeah, Maharaj, my comment is about appreciation. I really love the way you presented Sri Radhāষ্টami lecture. I think this is the mood of all our Guru Parampara, especially coming from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada. They actually wanted us to actually learn Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī's glories through Gaur Lila, through the Tattva of Gaur Lila, and approach it in that way so that we don't jump into the Leelas, jump into the esoteric aspects. Rather, we understand why Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī is glorified all across the literatures, all across the Vaishnavas. So I really appreciate that the way you presented, and this is something we aspire to follow. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu, and thanks for the confirmation and the summary. If we listen to Prabhupada, the way he'll speak on Radhāষ্টami and other days is very much connected to Bhaktivinoda Thakur and the mood that he always presents. That is through Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu is an excellent point, and thanks for the summary. Last point.
From the translation that Prabhupada gives of soul, of Atman and Paramatma, self and super self, you usually hear it as soul and super soul. And so that really struck me, just thinking of, everybody has a soul, but everyone is their self. And so that really just kind of struck me, that different translation of Atman.
This is Prabhupada's way of adjusting the language in such a way that it can be accommodated by people. I think in this purport, did he say super spirit? Yeah, some we say super soul. That's another one of Prabhupada's, param atma. So he said super soul. And then here he says super spirit. You know, you're a spirit and there's a super spirit. Because there's super man and super woman and super, everyone understands super. Everyone says, hey, how are you doing? Super. So Prabhupada would take these phrases and he'd turn them. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta recognized that in him. That's one of the, everybody did. That's why he got the title Bhaktivedanta. When he was amongst his colleagues there in Allahabad, then, you know, they'll say, who is this in our midst? He's a poet. As Guru said, that's his poem. That's good. Let's read this. And he also, just the way he spoke, he preached, everybody recognized his acumen, not just for Shastra, but for making it relevant, so they called him Bhaktivedanta. You've realized the purport of it. They gave him that title because of his expertise in that, and that's Prabhupada's books. His books, he takes these sometimes that seem like complex ideas, and then he makes them relevant so that everyone can take it. And that's what Prabhupada mentions in the first canto, 4th chapter, first verse, the second paragraph, that this is what's called realization. To be able to take the message of the previous acharyas, not screw any new meaning out of it, he says, but then say it in such a way that it hits the ear so people go, oh yeah, I get that. So that's the gift that Prabhupada gave the world through his books, unparalleled and poetical and understandable and relatable. Dear Śrīla Prabhupada, dear Śrī Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Śrī Śrī Panchatattva, Śrī Śrī Gaurnitai, Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī, Śrī Śrī Radha Madan Mohan, Śrī Śrī Lakshmi Nrsingadevi Visodesire on this Radhashtami day, please empower us to understand the mercy of Śrīla Prabhupada and all the great acharyas who have brought the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in such a way that we can dive into it, be practically engaged, and then come out on the shore of the pastimes of Radha Krishna in Vrindavan. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone who agrees with this prayer in whole or in part, please unmute and say Hare Krishna.